AWS Lambda, often called Lambda for short, is the name of Amazon's serverless computing service. Lambda lets you run your code without having to provision or manage any servers. And, as we discussed before, you only pay for the compute time you use. Lambda automatically scales because it runs your code as it's triggered. So each trigger spawns an individual Lambda function. Your code will run as many parallel threads as necessary to process the workload. The process works like this. You upload your code or write it in the built-in Lambda code editor. You configure your code to trigger based on an event, and Lambda runs your code when triggered, using only the necessary amount of compute required to carry out the task, and you only pay for the compute time used. You are charged for every gigabyte second of compute time used, rounded to the nearest 100 milliseconds, as well as the number of times your code is triggered by an event. AWS Lambda isn't the only component of AWS serverless architecture. Because of the nature of events that trigger functions in Lambda, AWS offers complementary services that natively integrate with Lambda. And here are some examples. You can invoke AWS Lambda functions over HTTPS by defining a custom REST API and endpoint using Amazon API Gateway, and then mapping individual methods such as get and put to specific Lambda functions. You can use a Lambda function to process messages in an SQS queue, and in an event-driven system, DynamoDB can be the event source, and Lambda functions can be evoked in response to the events. DynamoDB has a feature called DynamoDB Streams, where, after it's enabled on a table, all modifications to that table are recorded and pushed in order into the stream, making the stream data the trigger for the Lambda function. AWS Step Functions is an AWS service that lets you coordinate multiple AWS services into serverless workflows so you can build and update apps quickly. The Amazon Cognito Events feature enables you to run Lambda functions in response to events in Amazon Cognito. For example, you can invoke a Lambda function for the sync trigger events that is published each time a dataset is synchronized. In AWS Lambda, there are a variety of event sources that can trigger Lambda functions, but because you are only billed for the time your function is running, when implemented properly, Lambda can be among the least costly line items on your monthly AWS bill.